and, as Australians. All we do, or One Nation does, and the rest of Australian people, is we're wanting the same respect back. The respect back that we are still part of this nation, that we are people that have born here, people that have migrated here, that we also want acknowledgement and respect to the nation. To constantly be told this is not your land, Aboriginal land always was, always will be. You are disenfranchising me and many other Australians. The welcome to country was not culture or tradition. It was actually introduced into Australia by Ernie Dingo in the 70s in relation to New Zealand having the haka. Welcome to country has not been a tradition of this parliament and has only just been introduced in the last few years. This has not been a stunt that I pulled just this week. I have turned my back on it for the past 3 years. Maladiri and the other members of the caucus, First Nations caucus, as you call yourselves, I do understand and respect, and you're asking for that respect, and, as Australians. All we do, or One Nation does, and the rest of Australian people, is we're wanting the same respect back. The respect back that we are still part of this nation, that we are people that have born here, people that have migrated here, that we also want acknowledgement and respect to the nation. To constantly be told this is not your land, Aboriginal land always was, always will be. You are disenfranchising me and many other Australians. The welcome to country was not culture or tradition. It was actually introduced into Australia by Ernie Dingo in the 70s in relation to New Zealand having the haka. Welcome to country has not been a tradition of this parliament and has only just been introduced in the last few years. This has not been a stunt that I pulled just this week. I have turned my back on it for the past 3 years. Yeah. I am acknowledging the Australian people who voted against the voice. They don't want this division that's happening in our country. They are fed up with welcome to country. They want to see an end to it. To arrive on a plane in every state across this nation or, to get a welcome to country, people don't want that. They don't want this division. We have seen land handed back, and we've seen Australians stopped from going to certain places in this country because they're not welcomed there. This is their land. They can't go to Mount Warning, the Grampian Mountains. They can't go to certain parts. They can't do the things that every Australian should be entitled to. We are treated totally different in many areas. I understand the demise of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I've visited their communities. I've spoken to them. You haven't got the support of welcome to country from every Aboriginal. A lot of them out there have contacted me and said, we are over it as well. We don't want this division in our nation. So it's the stance that I've taken to speak up on behalf of those Australian people that don't want this division. I don't want to have to do this. But the whole fact is that I am actually speaking up on behalf because people don't know how else to protest over this. It's dividing us as a nation, as a people. Everything that I've said right from the very beginning I ever came into Parliament in 1996, my first statement was equality for all Australians. Yeah. But we're being treated totally different. It doesn't matter whether it's education, whether it's jobs, whether it's welfare, whether it's whatever it is. There is no definition to Aboriginality. And a lot of people claiming to be Aboriginal of this nation, they're not, because they can say it. That needs to change. As I said before, I'll say it again. When you recognise and respect us and say that we accept you as our equals in this nation, that we are all Australians together, I never hear it. And where is the protest that I hear of when the Aboriginal flag, not the Aboriginal flag, when the Australian flag is burnt in protest. Why should that be allowed?
Order.
That is not right. I've seen protests from Aboriginal people. I've seen the racism that's been thrown at me because I dare raise issues and I call for equality, so I'm supposed to be the racist of in this nation because I question things. That's not racism. Racism means that you believe your race to be superior to another. I have never, ever indicated that at all. I question, and all I have ever questioned is equality for all Australians. Yeah. And I will stand by that. And I've been the one who's actually gone up to these communities, come back to see the Minister for the Aboriginal Affairs, and I've advocated for jobs at Uluru, Ayers Rock, for those people there. I've advocated for housing up at North Queensland, Bamaka. I've advocated for a lot of issues to do with Aboriginal people and the corruption that's going on in these communities, land councils, everything like that. I've advocated for these people. A lot of Aboriginals come to me.
Senator Hanson.
Mate, strap in. Because what went down in Parliament this week wasn't just politics, it was pure, unfiltered Aussie chaos, the kind you couldn't script if you tried. Picture it. Anthony Albanese, the bloke meant to be running the country, sitting there like he's about to nod off during question time, and suddenly, boom, Pauline Hanson detonates a verbal grenade right in the middle of the Senate. Before we wrap up this absolute Parliament brawl, where Albo lost his cool, Pauline went full Queensland, and the Labor frontbench looked like they needed a group therapy session. Smash that like button harder than Hanson hit the podium. Subscribe if you're over watching Canberra meltdown on live TV. And grab the Who Voted for This shirt, links in the description. Now, we've seen our fair share of fiery exchanges in this country. From bar fights over footy teams to Facebook comment wars about who makes the better sausage roll, Aussies love a good scrap. But this one's different. Because what Pauline pulled off wasn't just a speech, it was a public spanking of the entire Labor Party, broadcast live, with the whole nation watching like it was the latest episode of Married at First Sight, Canberra edition. And the look on Albanese's face, mate, priceless. You know when your mate's missus starts unloading on him in front of everyone at the pub, and he's just sitting there, doing that awkward smile, praying for a fire alarm? That was Albo. Except instead of one angry missus, he had Pauline Hanson standing there tearing into him like a magpie on bin day. Pauline didn't just stroll up and speak. Nah, she stormed in like she owned the joint. And before anyone could even adjust their mic, she goes, "All we're asking for is respect. Respect for every Australian." And you could feel the tension in the room. You could practically hear Albo's internal monologue going, "Here we go again." See, Pauline wasn't mucking about. She was fired up about the whole welcome to country thing. Reckons it's gone too far. Reckons it's not even tradition. Reckons it's dividing the country. And mate, whether you agree with her or not, you can't deny, the woman knows how to grab a headline. She's like the political version of a smoke alarm that goes off every time you toast a crumpet, loud, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. She starts dropping lines about how the welcome to country wasn't ancient culture. It was introduced by Ernie Dingo in the 70s, which, to be fair, caught half the Senate off guard. You could almost see staffers on Google mid-speech like, wait, did Ernie Dingo actually invent that? Meanwhile, Albo's sitting there trying to remember his media training. Deep breaths, calm face, don't make eye contact, and for the love of God, don't smirk on camera. But Pauline? Oh, she's just warming up. She's been turning her back on welcome to country ceremonies for 3 years, and now she's finally explaining why. 3 years. That's longer than most Netflix series last these days. She claims she's not doing it for a stunt, it's a protest. A stand. A bit of symbolic pushback against what she calls division. Now, say what you will about Pauline, she's consistent. She's been running this equality for all Australians line since the late 90s, and she says it with the same fire in her eyes that your nan gets when someone suggests using margarine instead of butter. But as she goes on, you can feel the energy shift. The Senate's not just listening, they're bracing. She starts rattling off places Aussies supposedly can't go anymore. Mount Warning, the Grampians, certain national parks. We're being locked out of our own country. She cries. And I swear, you could almost hear some blokes in the back mutter, bloody oath, while others just put their heads in their hands thinking, oh no, not this again. And while she's going full throttle, Albanese looks like a man silently calculating how many cups of coffee it'll take to survive the next 48 hours of news headlines. You could tell his staffers were already drafting statements. The Prime Minister supports reconciliation but rejects divisive rhetoric. Yeah, good luck putting that fire out, mate. Pauline keeps hammering on, and her delivery, mate, it's classic Hanson. A little bit Queensland pub, a little bit school principal energy, and a whole lot of I've had enough of this nonsense. She's saying, it's dividing us, it's not fair, and I'm not gonna shut up about it. You can't help but admire the she-guts. Like her or not, she walks into Parliament like it's the family barbecue where she's about to tell everyone what's wrong with the government, and she's got the receipts. Then she takes a swing at the concept of Aboriginality itself, says there's no definition, that people are claiming it just because they can. The chamber goes quiet, like dead silent, that awkward kind of silence that hangs in the air when someone drops a truth bomb or a wildly controversial take, depending on how you see it. And Pauline doubles down. Says she's been to communities, talked to Indigenous locals, seen corruption, seen poverty, seen real issues that politicians in suits wouldn't know from a bar of soap. And she's got a point buried under all the fireworks. There are serious issues out there, but the way she packages it, it's less TD talk, more truck stop tirade, and mate, that's why the internet eats it up. Because while Albanese is trying to play statesman, Hanson's out here doing what Aussies actually respond to, raw emotion. She's saying what plenty of people are thinking, and plenty more are yelling at the telly. Doesn't mean she's right, doesn't mean she's wrong, but it does mean she's bloody loud. And the whole time, Albo's sitting there, probably wishing he could crawl under the desk and hide behind his infrastructure budget. You know he's thinking, if I just stare at my notes long enough, maybe Sky News will forget this ever happened. Spoiler alert, they didn't. At one point, Pauline starts talking about being called a racist, says people throw that label at her just for asking questions. That's not racism, she says. Racism is thinking you're better than someone else, and you can feel her frustration. The kind of frustration you get when you're halfway through a Facebook argument and realize no one's actually reading your comments anymore. She starts listing off all the things she's done for Indigenous communities, jobs, housing, advocacy, and you can tell she's genuinely proud of it. To her, it's proof she's not the villain people make her out to be. But in politics, perception is everything, and the perception right now, that she just torched a cultural powder keg live on national TV. Meanwhile, Albanese finally shifts in his seat, a flicker of irritation across his face. And mate, it's rare. You don't often see Albo lose composure, but you can feel it bubbling under the surface. He's gripping his pen, probably wishing it was a mute button. Because Pauline isn't just attacking policies, she's going after Labor's moral compass. She's saying the party that preaches equality is actually pushing division. And the thing is, she's not saying it with malice, she's saying it with conviction. That's what makes it sting. And you know the Senate vibe right then? Half the room's fuming, the other half's cheering quietly under their breath, and the press gallery, oh mate, they're salivating. Journalists typing like maniacs, knowing tomorrow's headlines write themselves. Hanson humiliates Labor. Albo loses it. Ernie Dingo trending again. The thing about Pauline is, she's not polished. She's not slick. She's not rehearsed. But she's authentic. And that's both her weapon and her weakness. When she talks, you believe she believes it, and that's what cuts through. In an age of spin doctors and talking points, she's out there swinging with bare knuckles. Now, let's talk about Albo's reaction, because that's half the entertainment. You could see him trying to keep his cool, the tiny smirk, the clenched jaw, that classic, I'm totally not fuming right now, face politicians get when the cameras are rolling. But as Pauline's speech dragged on, the cracks started showing. A little head shake here, a sarcastic laugh there, the man was barely holding it together. And by the time she hit her final crescendo, declaring that Aussies are sick of division, sick of being told they're guests in their own country, sick of the guilt, you could tell Albo wanted to fire back. But he couldn't, because if he did, it'd be PM loses it at Hanson. And if he didn't, it'd be PM humiliated in silence. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Classic Canberra. Then the camera cuts to Pauline, proud as punch, standing tall, soaking it all in like a rock star after the encore. And she finishes with that signature Hanson flair, I'll stand by what I've said. You could almost hear her inner voice going, your move, Albo. And that's when you realize something. This isn't just about policy anymore. It's theatre. It's pure political theatre. And Pauline Hanson is one of the best performers Australia's ever seen. She's not playing to the Senate, she's playing to the voters watching at home, the ones shouting, bloody oath, at their TV sets. Meanwhile, Albanese's team is already in damage control mode, drafting rebuttals, planning press conferences, trying to spin it as Pauline's rant distracts from real issues. But too late, mate. The clip's already viral. TikTok's chopping it up. Sky's running it on loop. YouTube's feeding it to millions. Because here's the thing. In modern politics, perception is power. You can spend months crafting a speech about national unity and it'll get 5 views. Or you can lose your cool for 5 seconds on live TV, and boom, that's your legacy for the week. And Pauline? She knows that better than anyone. She's been milking outrage for decades, and somehow she's still standing, still relevant, still making headlines while entire parties have come and gone. So as Albo packs up his papers, pretending to chat with Penny Wong while avoiding eye contact with the cameras, Pauline's walking out like she just won a UFC title fight. No notes, no hesitation, just pure Queensland confidence and a trail of political carnage behind her. And here's the kicker. While Labor's scrambling to clarify context, and the ABC's panel show is dissecting it with the same energy as a uni debate team, the average Aussie sitting on the couch doesn't care about the nuance. They care about what they felt. And what they felt was raw, unscripted emotion, a rare glimpse of passion in a place that usually feels about as lively as a council meeting. That's why these moments hit. That's why people tune in. Because for all our cynicism about politics, Aussies love a showdown. We love authenticity, even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. And that's what we saw. Pauline Hanson, gloves off, taking a swing at the entire establishment, and Anthony Albanese, trying to keep his cool while the internet replays his every eye twitch in slow motion. So, was it embarrassing for Labor? Absolutely. Was it entertaining? Mate, it was gold. Pure, chaotic, sausage sizzle gold. And as the dust settles, you can already see how it plays out. Pauline's fans calling her a hero for saying what others won't. Labor loyalists calling it a stunt. And Albo pretending he didn't just get roasted on live TV by someone who once said fish and chips were under threat from multiculturalism. That's the beauty of Aussie politics, mate. It's not about who's right, it's about who puts on the better show. And this week, no question, Pauline stole the spotlight. So here's the lesson. In Canberra, composure is currency, but chaos gets the clicks. And when one senator turns a policy debate into a pub brawl with a microphone, you can bet your last schooner the internet's gonna have a field day. Albo might have lost his cool, but let's be honest, we all won. Because for once, Parliament wasn't boring. It was fiery. It was ridiculous. It was real. And that's why we watch, isn't it? To see what happens when the polished facade cracks, when the spin drops, and when politicians forget the cameras are rolling. That's when you see the truth, or at least, the closest thing to it in this circus. So next time you hear order, order, echoing through Parliament, just know, it's not order they're chasing. It's attention, and whoever grabs it first, they win the day. Anyway, legends, if you stuck around for this full rollercoaster of Aussie drama, cheers. Smash that like button if you enjoyed watching Albo try not to combust under the fluorescent lights of democracy. Subscribe if you reckon our leaders need thicker skin and a bit more backbone. And as always, keep your eyes open, your beers cold, and your politicians on a short leash. Because if we don't hold them accountable, no one will. Oh, and before you go, grab the "Who voted for this?" shirt, links in the description. Because after this week, that question's never been more relevant.